My name is Angela Allen, 29 years old. If you asked anyone a year ago, they'd tell you I was the calm one, the kind of woman who diffused arguments with logic, never raised her voice, never threw things. But calm doesn't mean unbreakable. Even glass looks solid until it shatters. That night, the sound of breaking glass sliced through the quiet of my kitchen. Roland had dropped his wine glass into the sink shards, glittering under the warm light. He stared at the mess, shrugged, and started to walk away. "Roland," I said evenly, "you're not going to clean that up." He didn't even turn around. "I'll do it later." "There's broken glass in the sink," I said, still holding the sponge. "I'm washing dishes right now." He sighed, exasperated. "Then do them later, Angela." Something inside me cracked. It wasn't about the glass. It never was. It was the way he said my name, like I was a problem to be scheduled. For months, I'd been living with tiny shards like these, the forgotten bills, the mockery in front of friends, the flirtatious texts he said were just jokes. Every time I swept the mess aside, told myself love meant patience. But that night, I realized love wasn't supposed to hurt, like stepping barefoot on broken glass. "Please," I said quietly, "just clean it up. It takes 10 seconds. He rolled his eyes so hard I thought they'd disappear into his skull. "Oh my God, Angela, you're so dramatic." He grabbed a napkin, picked up 2 little pieces, and tossed them into the trash. The rest stayed glinting in the sink like tiny mirrors of disrespect. Then he turned back, arms crossed. "You know what? This is who I am. Take it or leave it." The words hit harder than the crash had. I looked at him, really looked. The man I'd loved for 2.5 years standing in the kitchen I paid for in the shirt I bought him, acting like boundaries were insults. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "I'll leave it." His smirk faltered. "What?" "I'll leave it," I repeated. I dried my hands, walked past him to the bedroom, and started pulling his clothes from the closet. "What are you doing?" His tone had that familiar sharp edge of disbelief, the kind that always used to make me hesitate. "Packing your things," I said simply. "Packing my— Are you serious right now?" "Completely." I reached for the black duffel bag he used for weekend trips, folding his shirts neatly. My movements were precise, almost peaceful. "Babe, stop," he said, trying to grab the bag. "You're overreacting." "No," I said, "I'm reacting to months of disrespect that just culminated in you telling me exactly who you are." He laughed nervously. "Angela, come on. It's broken glass, not a crime." "It's the symbol of everything broken between us," I whispered more to myself than to him. He tried a different tone, soft pleading. "You can't kick me out. I live here." "You stay here," I corrected. "Your name isn't on the lease or any bills. You're a guest who's overstayed." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked up, eyes cold. "That's not my problem anymore." He scoffed. "Wow, so heartless. After everything I've done for you." I laughed quietly. "You mean after everything I've done for you?" I packed the last shirt, zipped the bag, and carried it to the living room. "Angela, please." His voice trembled. "You don't mean this." "I do. I love you. If this is love, Roland, then you need to redefine it." I opened the door and placed his bags outside. "You can call someone to pick you up, or I can order you a ride. Your choice." He stood frozen, caught between anger and fear. "I'm not leaving." "Then I'll call the police and have you removed as a trespasser." For the first time, I saw something new in his eyes, panic. "Fine," he spat. "You'll regret this. No one else will put up with you like I did." I met his gaze. "Exactly. That's why you're leaving." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. I turned back to the kitchen. The broken glass still sparkled in the sink, untouched. Piece by piece, I picked them up, dropped them carefully into the trash, and let the water run clear. For the first time in months, I smiled while cleaning. The air felt lighter, my reflection steadier. But as the water swirled down the drain, I had a strange feeling, like the mess I'd cleaned up wasn't finished with me yet. Because Roland wasn't the kind of man who accepted consequences quietly. He'd just lost his home, his comfort, his control. And I knew deep down he was about to make sure I paid for choosing peace over chaos. That night I sat alone at the kitchen table, the clock ticking softly. My hands were steady, but my mind was racing. Freedom didn't feel like fireworks, it felt like quiet. Heavy quiet. And somewhere in that stillness, I whispered the truth aloud. He said, "This is who I am," and I believed him. I didn't know it then, but the glass in the sink wasn't the end of our story. It was just the sound of something much bigger breaking his illusion of control. And the echo of that shatter would follow both of us for a long, long time. When you finally walk away from someone who thrives on chaos, you don't get silence. You get noise, texts, calls, guilt trips, and drama echoing through every digital crack in your piece. It started 7 hours after I kicked Roland out. Day 1, 7:23 a.m. My phone buzzed 8 times before I even opened my eyes. Roland, my card got declined at Starbucks. What did you do, Roland? You're seriously going to cut me off like that, Roland? You're heartless. He wasn't wrong that I'd done something. I'd removed him from my credit card account the same night I packed his things. For 2 years, he'd been an authorized user. It sounded harmless until I realized he'd spent more on coffee and sneakers than on anything that actually mattered. I didn't reply. At 8:10, another text. Roland, this is financial abuse. The irony nearly made me laugh. By noon, he switched tactics. Roland, please fix this. I'm stranded. I'll pay you back. When have you ever done that? I whispered, scrolling through my payment history. $480 last month, brunches, business clothes, random online orders. I could count on one hand the number of times he'd said thank you. I deleted the messages and went back to work, the silence between each notification heavier than the last. That night, I made myself dinner pan-seared salmon, something I hadn't cooked in months, because he'd always complained that it smelled like diet food. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, lonely, yes, but the kind of lonely that feels like healing, not punishment. Day 2, the internet lit up before my coffee brewed. Roland had taken his heartbreak public. On his Instagram story, when toxic women can't handle real men. Sleeping on couches, but at least I'm free. She kicked me out for being myself. His friends flooded his comments with "Stay strong, king, and you deserve better." I stared at the screen, shaking my head. For a moment, I considered defending myself. Then I remembered something my therapist once said. You don't need to correct lies told to people committed to misunderstanding you. So I didn't. Instead, I blocked him. And every time my phone buzzed with another post, I blocked the next account too. Later that afternoon, my friend Jade sent me screenshots from a group chat. Girl didn't. Roland literally bragged about how Angela paid for everything. The post vanished minutes later, but not before it was saved by half the people who'd seen it. For the first time, his charm cracked in public. By the evening of day 2, I got a call from Verizon. A polite voice said, "Hi, Ms. Allen. We received a request to transfer Mr. Roland Hale's phone line off your family plan. But there's a balance of $912 on the device he's using. We need that paid off first." I smiled faintly. That balance will remain his responsibility. Decline the transfer. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Roland. Why are you doing this to me, Angela? Doing what, Roland? Making my life harder. Angela, Roland, your life was funded by my patients. I just stopped financing both. He didn't reply. Day 3. That's when the real unraveling began. His boss at the yoga studio, yes, the one I'd helped him get a part-time job at, called me. Hi, Angela, Roland. Listed you as his emergency contact. He's been late all week and asked for an advance on his pay. I just wanted to check if everything's okay. I stared at the phone, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. That sounds about right. Everything's fine on my end. That night, my doorbell rang. I didn't answer. It was almost midnight, but curiosity made me check the peephole. No one there. Just an Uber idling outside and a figure on the sidewalk with their phone pressed to their ear. My stomach sank. I turned off the lights. The car left 10 minutes later. When I finally slept, I dreamed of glass, tiny sharp pieces scattered across my floor no matter how many times I swept them away. The next morning, I met my therapist, Dr. Hahn, for coffee. She listened quietly as I told her everything. The wine glass, the packing, the texts, the posts. Then she asked, "How does your body feel when you think about him now?" I thought for a moment, like I can finally breathe. She nodded. "Then that's not guilt you're feeling, Angela. That's withdrawal. You got addicted to cleaning up his chaos." I sat back, the words sinking deep. Addicted to chaos. It sounded cruel, but it was true. For years, I'd mistaken his need for attention as love and my exhaustion as devotion. Now I just felt empty, and that emptiness was beautiful. That night, I turned my phone on silent, made tea, and stood at the kitchen counter staring at the sink. The same spot where it all began. The surface gleamed. No shards, no noise, no mess. I finally understood that peace isn't loud, it's earned. But deep down, I knew Roland wasn't done. Men like him never let go quietly. They linger in the spaces you once shared, trying to remind you that peace has a price. And he was about to make sure I paid it. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that when you take stability away from someone who lived off it, they don't crumble quietly. They make noise, they flail, and they convince themselves they're the ones being wronged. By the 4th morning after the breakup, my phone lit up with unknown numbers and private calls. I didn't answer, but the voicemails told me everything I needed to know. "Angela, please, I just need you to fix this one thing. My paycheck bounced because my direct deposit was linked to your account. You're ruining my life, and for what? A-Glass, I can't believe you just abandoned me like this. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Until I checked my banking app and realized Roland had tried to access my joint Amazon account and order $240 worth of supplements. Old habits die hard. I changed every password I owned. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't owe anyone an explanation for protecting myself. Meanwhile, through mutual friends, bits of his downfall started trickling in. Apparently, he'd moved in temporarily with Caleb, his best friend, the same Caleb who had posted, "She doesn't deserve you, bro," under his breakup rant. 2 days later, Caleb posted a cryptic tweet, "Never house a friend who thinks chores are beneath him." I couldn't help the small smile that escaped. Karma didn't need my help, it had Wi-Fi. At work, I found myself strangely focused. Deadlines I used to dread felt easier now that no one was texting me 30 times a day asking, "What's for dinner?" or "Can you transfer me $50 till Friday?" My coworkers even commented on it. "Angela, you look lighter," said Mina, one of the designers. New haircut, I just smiled. New piece. That night I sat in therapy again. Dr. Hahn handed me a small notepad. Write down everything you gave him that he never noticed. I listed my weekends, my quiet mornings, my savings, my self-respect. When I looked up, she said softly, "Good. Now write what you got in return." I stared at the blank page for a long moment. Then I drew a single line through it. Nothing. Day 5. Roland finally broke the silence. "Roland, you win. I hope you're happy." Angela. "This isn't a competition, Roland." "Then why do I feel like I lost everything?" Angela. "Because you treated everything like it would stay, no matter how you acted." He didn't reply for 2 hours. Then another message appeared. "Roland, can I at least come by to get my yoga mat?" I exhaled, pinched the bridge of my nose. "Your yoga mat." It was my yoga mat bought during his mindfulness phase, which lasted a week. "Angela, I already packed all your things. Everything else stays. Roland, you're being petty." "Angela, I'm being factual." He switched tactics again. "Roland, you used to be so kind. What happened to you, Angela?" I stopped mistaking tolerance for kindness. That evening, I went for a walk through the city. The air was crisp and the world seemed oddly bright, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. I passed a cafe where we used to go every Sunday. The barista looked up, recognized me, then hesitated. "Where's your boyfriend?" I smiled gently. "He's finding himself." Later, I'd laugh at that phrasing because he was finding himself, just not in the way he imagined. By the end of the week, his freedom was costing him more than pride. He'd lost access to my Netflix, Spotify, and Uber accounts. His phone plan was suspended after he failed to pay the bill, and when his part-time hours at the yoga studio were cut, he tried calling me again from an unknown number. I picked up by accident. "Angela," his voice was small. "I'm sorry. Okay, can we talk?" "About what?" "About us." "There is no us, Roland. There's just you and whatever mess you're sitting in now." He went quiet. I could hear the echo of traffic behind him, street noise, a horn, the sound of someone pacing. "I can't believe you'd just leave me like this," he said finally. "After everything." I felt something twist inside me. Guilt maybe, but I swallowed it down. "Roland, I didn't leave you. You left when you decided respect was optional." And I hung up. 2 days later, I learned he'd started staying with another woman, a fitness instructor from his studio. Her name was Rena, and she posted a story of the two of them drinking wine on her balcony captioned, "Some people upgrade fast." I didn't feel jealous. I felt relieved. Let someone else clean up the glass this time. But then something about her smile, forced nervous, made me uneasy. I knew that look. I'd worn it once too. The look of someone trying to convince herself she's happy while sensing a storm gathering behind the charm. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end of Roland's story. It was just the start of his spiral. Because when people like him lose their comfort, they don't reflect, they replace. And eventually they destroy the next version of home they find. That night I sat by my window, the city lights glimmering like shards of that old wine glass. Dr. Hahn's words echoed in my head. "He's addicted to your stability." But she'd been wrong about one thing. Roland wasn't addicted to my stability. He was addicted to anyone's. Anyone who would let him keep pretending he was whole. I turned off my phone, curled up on the couch, and let the silence fill the room again. Somewhere out there, Roland was probably making another speech. "This is who I am" to someone new. And one day soon, she'd learn what I did. That line isn't self-awareness. It's a warning. They say silence is powerful, but no one tells you how heavy it feels when it's weaponized against you. For 3 weeks, I didn't respond to a single one of Roland's messages, and in that vacuum, he started writing his own story. The first time I saw it, I was scrolling mindlessly before bed. A mutual friend had reposted a video Roland made on TikTok, him sitting shirtless in dim lighting, face serious, voice shaking just enough to seem vulnerable. Sometimes you give everything to someone and they just throw you away. The caption read, "When you love too deeply and get betrayed." Had heartbreak, #toxic love. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments, and a flood of sympathy he hadn't earned. "She didn't deserve you, bro. You'll find someone who appreciates a real man." I almost scrolled past. Almost. Then I noticed one comment pinned to the top, written by Roland himself. "She kicked me out over broken glass. Guess that says everything." I dropped the phone onto my bed and laughed sharp, bitter hollow. It wasn't the glass, and he knew it, but the truth never mattered as much as the version that got attention. By the next morning, the narrative war had spread. Instagram posts, cryptic song lyrics, screenshots with half the context missing. He even changed his bio to the villain in her story. For someone who hated drama, he was staging a one-man show. I tried to ignore it. Truly, I did. But the thing about lies is when you stay quiet long enough, people start mistaking your peace for guilt. A coworker messaged me privately. "Hey, just checking in. I saw Roland's posts. You okay?" I typed back, "I'm fine. Just letting him burn through his performance." She replied with a single emoji. It felt fitting. That afternoon, Dr. Hahn asked, "Have you considered confronting him publicly?" I shook my head. That would mean stepping back into his stage. I left the show. She smiled. Good answer. But remember, peace isn't weakness, Angela. It's restraint. Still, part of me wanted to scream the truth that for 2 years, I'd carried his emotional weight like a mule, paid for his comforts, endured his condescension. Instead, I took a deep breath and chose silence again. Because silence, if used right, becomes its own form of storytelling. Day 9 of his social media martyrdom, the cracks started to show. A friend of his, Jade, the same one who'd called him out before, commented, "Didn't you brag about her paying your rent while you saved for sneakers?" He deleted the comment within minutes, but screenshots travel faster than shame. By evening, the sympathy turned into mockery. People started stitching his video with sarcastic reactions. He got evicted from his sugar mama's house and called it heartbreak. The internet didn't side with either of us completely, but it did what it always does. It got bored. Within a day, Roland's 15 seconds of pity turned into silence again. That night, my phone rang. The caller ID said Doris Hale, Roland's mother. I hesitated before answering. "Mrs. Hale." "Hi, Angela. I just wanted to check if Roland's okay. He's been telling us some things." I closed my eyes. I'm sure he has. "He said you threw him out over a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said quietly. "It was a pattern. The glass was just the last straw." There was silence on the other end, then a weary sigh. "You sound tired," she said. "I am." Her voice softened. "So are we." Behind her, I heard Greg's muffled tone. "If he's calling you, hang up. He needs to fix his own mess." She ignored him and said, "I'm sorry for what you went through. We tried to warn him about taking advantage of people. Maybe this will be his wake-up call." Maybe, I said, though I didn't believe it. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through his old photos, not to torture myself, but to remind myself of how delusion creeps in slowly. Each picture was like a still from a play I didn't realize I was starring in. Me smiling while he bragged, me laughing while he mocked, me shrinking so he could shine brighter. I finally closed the app and whispered, "Never again." The following week, he tried one last play, a new post. "I've made mistakes, but love shouldn't be conditional." And there it was, the final act of self-pity. Conditional love, the phrase that manipulative people use when they're told to respect boundaries. I didn't respond, but I wrote a note in my phone. Love should absolutely be conditional on respect, on honesty, on effort. Otherwise, it's not love, it's servitude. Then came the message that broke the tension entirely. Caleb. "Hey, Angela. Just FYI, Roland's moving out. My girlfriend's done with him crashing here. Sorry if he's been bothering you." I stared at the text for a while, then typed back. "He's not my problem anymore, but thank you." Caleb. "He's out of control, Angela. I think he really thought you'd take him back." I didn't respond, because I knew what was next. When the audience stops clapping, performers don't retire, they find a new stage. And Roland. He was about to start auditioning again. That night, as I wiped the kitchen counter, my reflection caught in the window. Tired eyes, a faint smile. The same kitchen where it had all started. Only now the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was sacred. I whispered into the stillness, "Tell your story however you want, Roland. I'm living mine." And for the first time, I believed it. Peace doesn't come all at once. It sneaks in between the cracks, between long silences, unread messages, and the hum of an apartment that finally feels like yours again. It had been nearly a month since I told Roland to leave. The noise around his heartbreak saga had faded, but the ghost of him still lingered in small, stupid ways. A hoodie I forgot to donate. A song that still played automatically on my Spotify. The dent in the couch cushion where he used to sit scrolling endlessly while I cooked. Healing wasn't cinematic. It was slow, repetitive, and often boring. But it was also mine. I started journaling every morning at Dr. Hahn's suggestion. 3 lines a day. Something I feel. Something I'm grateful for. Something I'm learning. Day 12's entry read, "I feel steady. I'm grateful for quiet. I'm learning that peace has a sound. It's the absence of walking on eggshells." For the first time, my handwriting didn't shake. That afternoon, I ran into Dylan. We'd met months ago at a photography class I took on weekends back when Roland complained I was wasting money on pointless hobbies. Dylan was the kind of person who listened without waiting to talk. He had that calm presence that felt like exhaling after holding your breath too long. He smiled when he saw me. "You disappeared from class." "Life happened," I said, and we both laughed. Over coffee, we talked about everything but relationships. Movies, city lights, favorite books. I didn't feel that performative pressure to seem okay. I just was. When he offered to walk me home, I hesitated, then said yes. As we reached my building, he said gently, "You seem lighter now, but you've got that look of someone who's been carrying too much for too long." I smiled faintly. "I'm learning to put it down." He nodded. "Keep doing that." That night, for the first time in months, I fell asleep without checking my phone. Meanwhile, Roland's spiral was accelerating. I didn't have to stalk him. His downfall found me through whispers. Caleb's girlfriend Mira DM'd me. He's been hopping between couches, tried to borrow money from Caleb, said he's finding himself. Another message came from Jade. He's posting again. Something about how women ruin men financially. He's still blaming you. I didn't even look. I didn't need to. When people like Roland fall, they look for someone else to land on. A week later, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the sight that greeted me when I opened it made my stomach drop. Roland. He looked different. Not the confident man who once sneered at boundaries. This version was unshaven eyes, ringed dark, wearing a hoodie I hadn't seen since last winter. "Angela," he said, voice cracked. "Please, I just need to talk." I held the door halfway open. "About what?" "I messed up," he said quickly. "I get that now. I've been staying at a friend's place, and Look, I just need a few days, just to get back on my feet." A part of me, a small dangerous part, wanted to help. Old habits whispered, "He's lost. You could fix him." But the stronger part of me remembered the nights he'd laughed at my exhaustion, the times he called me dramatic for wanting respect. "No," I said firmly, "you can't stay here." He blinked like I'd slapped him. "I'm not asking to move in permanently. Just until I figure things out. You have the space. I also have boundaries." His jaw clenched. "You've changed." "I had to," I said, "because being the version you loved almost destroyed me." He laughed bitterly. "So what, you're perfect now? You think you're above everyone?" I took a slow breath. "No, Roland. I'm just finally not beneath anyone." That hit him. I saw it in the flicker of his eyes. He stepped back, shaking his head. "You're going to regret this." I closed the door halfway. No, I regretted staying. After he left, my legs shook. Old fear has muscle memory. Even when the threat is gone, your body remembers what it was like to tiptoe around it. I sat on the floor and let the tears fall. Not out of sadness, out of release. For months, I'd carried guilt like an anchor, thinking leaving made me cruel. But now, watching him unravel under the weight of his own choices, I realized I'd never been cruel. I'd been kind to the wrong person. A few days later, Dylan texted, "Still learning to put things down." "Trying to," I replied. "Good. Sometimes healing isn't about finding peace. It's about not letting the past rent space in your head." His words lingered in me longer than I expected. That evening, I opened my old phone gallery. Thousands of photos from the time Roland and I were together. Vacations, dinners, fake smiles. One by one, I deleted them. Not out of hatred, but out of self-respect. When the last image vanished, I felt lighter. Somewhere in the city, Roland was still performing the same show under a new title, but I was no longer part of the audience. I poured myself a glass of water, looked at my reflection in the window, and said softly, "Love without respect is just captivity." And for once, the person looking back at me didn't look broken. She looked free. The night he came back, it was raining so hard the city looked blurred, like someone had smudged the skyline with a wet thumb. I'd just finished cooking dinner 2 plates, even though I was alone. It had become a small ritual reminding myself that I could fill a table without someone else sitting across from me. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. For a second, I thought maybe it was Dylan stopping by unannounced like he sometimes did after his late shifts. But something in the rhythm, hesitant yet familiar, made my stomach twist before my brain even caught up. When I opened the door, Roland was standing there, soaked to the bone. "Angela," he said softly, hair plastered to his forehead. "Please, just let me come in for a minute." Rain dripped from his hoodie onto the doormat. He looked smaller somehow, not in body, but in spirit, like arrogance had finally been washed off him. I didn't move. "Why are you here, Roland?" I had nowhere else to go. I should have closed the door right then. But curiosity, dangerous human curiosity, held me still. "What happened to your friend's place?" He gave a bitter laugh. "You mean Caleb?" "His girlfriend kicked me out, said I was freeloading." I raised an eyebrow. "Were you—" He shrugged, the gesture helpless. I was trying to get back on my feet. "And how's that going?" "Terrible." His voice cracked. "I can't find steady work. My car's gone. My phone line got cut off. I've been sleeping at the yoga studio when no one's there." He looked up at me, eyes wide and glistening. "I know I messed up. I just need a chance to fix it." For a moment, I felt that old pull the part of me that used to rescue reason repair. But right behind it came another image. Me on my kitchen floor, months ago, crying quietly while he scrolled on his phone, unfazed. So I said nothing. He took a step closer. "I'm not asking to move back in permanently. Just a week or 2 until I find something stable. Please, Angela, you're all I have." I stared at him. The man who once told me, "This is who I am," was now asking me to save him from being exactly that. "I can't," I said finally. "Why not?" "Because every time I let you in, I lose pieces of myself, and I work too hard to get them back." He blinked, water dripping from his chin. "You've really become cold." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just stopped mistaking self-preservation for cruelty." He exhaled, frustrated. "You think you're so righteous now, like you never did anything wrong." "Oh, I did plenty wrong," I said quietly, starting with loving someone who showed me who he was and thinking I could fix him anyway. For a long time, he just stood there, shoulders trembling. Then he said, "You're really going to turn me away, out here in the rain." I hesitated, then reached for my phone. "I'll call you an Uber." He flinched as if the offer itself was an insult. "Don't bother." He turned to leave, but I caught his wrist. Not to stop him, just to steady the shaking that wasn't entirely his. "Roland," I said softly, "I don't hate you. I just don't owe you another chance to hurt me." He looked down at my hand on his sleeve. "You'll regret this." "I already did," I whispered. As the elevator doors closed on him, I felt my chest rise and fall like I'd been holding my breath for months. The apartment felt different when I walked back in, like something poisonous had finally been aired out. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, everything was still. I sank onto the couch and stared at the door, half expecting him to knock again. But he didn't. When my phone buzzed 15 minutes later, it was the Uber driver. "Hi, just confirming the passenger canceled." He decided to walk. I thanked him and hung up. Then, without really thinking, I texted Dylan. "Me, you ever feel proud and heartbroken at the same time, Dylan?" "All the time. Usually means you did the right thing." The next day, Dr. Han listened quietly as I told her everything. When I finished, she asked, "How did it feel closing the door?" "Like closing a wound," I said. "And how does it feel today?" "Like it's starting to scar." She smiled. "Scars aren't ugly, Angela. They're just proof you survived something that tried to break you." That night, I cleaned the kitchen again. Not because it was messy, but because it was a habit, one that used to mean I was trying to control something, anything, when life felt out of hand. Only now it was different. I wasn't cleaning to forget pain. I was cleaning because the space deserved peace. As I wiped down the counter, I caught my reflection in the glass window, soft light, tired eyes, but steady. Maybe closure doesn't come with grand apologies or poetic endings. Maybe it comes when someone knocks on your door, and instead of letting them in, you choose yourself. Outside, the rain finally stopped, and for the first time since that night with the shattered wine glass, I felt certain this time the mess would stay outside the door. 3 months passed, just long enough for life to look normal again, and for me to almost forget that the storm had a name. Almost. Because one ordinary morning, as sunlight pooled through the kitchen blinds, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. The voice on the other end was shaky, but unmistakable. "Angela, it's me." "Roland." For a moment, I just stared at the phone, silent. Then I said, "You shouldn't be calling me." "I know, I needed to hear a familiar voice." You have friends, family. He gave a hollow laugh. Not anymore. I almost hung up. But curiosity, morbid, human, dangerous, kept me on the line. What happened? He sighed. Everything. Turns out, after I shut the door that night, Roland's life continued to collapse in perfect tragic rhythm. He lasted 3 days couch surfing before Caleb finally told him to leave for good. Then, as if poetic justice had a sense of humor, his yoga studio job let him go. They'd caught him sleeping there after hours security footage and all. When they asked why, he said, "My ex kicked me out. I had nowhere to go." They gave him his final paycheck and a reminder that the studio isn't a shelter. After that, he tried staying with a girl he met online. It lasted 4 nights. She kicked him out after discovering he'd used her card just to buy food. The receipt said luxury cologne. "Angela," he said on the phone, voice trembling. "I'm trying. Okay, I'm looking for jobs, but no one will hire me. Have you tried apologizing to the people you hurt?" He hesitated. "That's not fair. I've been through hell." "So has everyone you used," I said. Silence. Then, "You don't get it. I didn't mean to be this way." I swallowed. "But you were. That's the thing about meaning, it doesn't erase the damage." He started crying then. Real tears this time, or maybe desperation disguised as them. "Angela, please," he said, voice cracking. "I need help. Just a little money. I'll pay you back, I swear." I closed my eyes. I could almost see him, same pleading tone, same pattern. A cycle dressed up as remorse. "No, Roland," I said gently. "You need consequences, not rescue." He sniffled. "You think you're better than me now." "No," I said, "just freer." And I hung up. Later that day, Dr. Hahn said something that stuck with me. You can't be someone's redemption story when they're still writing in denial. It hurt, but she was right, because part of me still wanted him to change. Not for me, but so that the years I spent trying to save him wouldn't feel wasted. But the truth was simpler and harsher. Some people don't change. They just run out of people to blame. A week later, Greg Hale, Roland's father, called me. "Angela, I'm sorry to bother you," he said. "But have you heard from him?" I did, briefly. He sighed. "We told him he could come home if he got a full-time job and started therapy. He called us controlling. We haven't heard from him since." "Where is he now?" "We think a motel somewhere. Doris tried sending money. He blocked her after she refused to cover his credit card bill." I stayed quiet. Greg's voice broke a little. "You did the right thing leaving him. I wish we'd done it sooner." That night I found myself thinking about Roland, not out of nostalgia but clarity. He'd become the sum of every choice he refused to own, every boundary he mocked, every hand he bit when it stopped feeding him. But I wasn't angry anymore. I just felt sad. Because once upon a time, I'd loved the version of him I thought was real. The kind man under all the arrogance, the partner I believed he could be, if only he tried. But now I understood something fundamental. I hadn't loved him. I'd loved his potential. And potential without accountability is just a ghost that haunts you long after the person's gone. A few days later, I got another call. Unknown number again. This time a deeper voice. "Ms. Allen. This is Officer Perez from the local precinct. We have Roland Hale in custody. He listed you as his emergency contact." I froze. Custody for what? "Property damage and false report," the officer said. "He was staying with a man named Dexter Lang. Apparently things got physical." My stomach turned. "Is he okay?" "He's fine. The other party has no serious injuries. But he'll need someone to call for bail." I exhaled slowly. "That's not going to be me." The officer was quiet for a moment, then said, "You're not the first woman to say that today." After hanging up, I sat on the couch, staring at the quiet room that used to echo with his voice. It hit me then. This was the true cost of, "This is who I am." When you say it like a weapon instead of a truth, you don't get to choose who bleeds. That evening, Dylan stopped by with takeout. He took one look at my face and said, "You heard something, didn't you?" I nodded. "He's in jail." He set the food down gently. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just processing." He sat beside me silent for a while, then said, "You know, sometimes the story doesn't end with revenge or regret. It just ends with distance." I smiled faintly. "Distance sounds perfect." He leaned back. "Then let's toast to that." We clinked paper cups of cold tea and let the silence between us feel safe. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. No new messages, no calls, just peace, the kind that doesn't need permission to exist. Roland's story was still unfolding somewhere messy and loud, but mine was finally quiet. And I'd learned that sometimes the best ending isn't watching someone change, it's realizing you don't have to wait for them to. It's strange, the things that stay with you. The sound of a wine glass breaking, the weight of a door you finally learned to close, And the quiet, the kind that no longer feels empty, but earned. It's been a year. The kitchen looks different now. New curtains, a little herb garden by the window, a photograph of me and Dylan both half laughing because he'd burned the first batch of pancakes. The air smells like fresh basil and butter, not tension and resentment. Sometimes I still catch myself glancing at the sink, half expecting to see shards glinting under the light. Old reflexes die slow. But all I ever find there now are clean dishes and peace. Dylan is humming softly as he plates dinner. He always hums when he cooks off-key, but gentle. "Don't forget your tea," he says. "You get distracted." I smile. "You mean I overthink?" He shrugs. Same thing sometimes. We sit down, and for the long while we don't talk. We don't need to. The silence isn't tense. It's tender, two people comfortable enough not to fill every space with noise. After we eat, he leans back and asks, "Do you ever think about him?" I pause, consider my answer. Sometimes. Not the way I used to. How's that? I don't replay the fights anymore, or the apologies that never meant anything. I just remember the lessons. Later that night, while he washes dishes, I scroll through my phone. A new message request sits in my inbox. The name makes my stomach tighten for half a second before I exhale. Roland. The first line reads, "I know you'll never forgive me, but I wanted you to know I'm in therapy now. Court-ordered, but still. I realize I was toxic and entitled. I took you for granted. You deserve better. I hope you found it." I stare at the screen for a long time. A year ago, I would have dissected every word searching for sincerity. Now I just feel distant. Because maybe he has changed, or maybe he's just learned new words for the same old behavior. Either way, it's not my story anymore. I don't reply. I delete the message, then block the number again. When Dylan comes back, he sees the look on my face. "Old ghosts," he asks quietly. I nod. One of them tried knocking again. He doesn't ask who. He just wraps his arms around me and says, "You don't have to open the door." I know, I whisper. I already learned how. Later, we stand side by side at the sink, drying dishes together. The warm water runs clear, no shards, no echoes of glass. Just two people, steady hands, steady hearts. I think about the woman I used to be, the one who confused forgiveness with endurance, who believed love meant cleaning up someone else's mess. I think about the night I chose peace over chaos and the long road it took to make that peace feel safe. And I think about what Dr. Hahn once said, "Healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering without bleeding." Before bed, I open my journal, the same one I started the week Roland left. On the very last page I write, "When someone tells you who they are, believe them. When they say, take it or leave it, don't beg them to change. Just leave." I close the notebook and slide it into a drawer. Then I glance around my home, tidy counters, folded laundry, the soft hum of the city outside. For the first time, everything feels complete. Peace doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just sits quietly at your kitchen table sipping tea beside someone who never makes you question your worth. And that's how I know I didn't just survive that story. I ended it.